Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here for VideoCopilot.net, and today we're going to take a look at optical flares for Nuke and some of the top features. So first of all, optical flares, our lens flare plugin now works natively inside of Nuke. We can do things like adjust the lens flare position, brightness, scale, all the common things. We can change the color, and there we go. We've got kind of a nice Knight Rider knockoff finally. And so it's pretty cool. And of course, we have the lens flare editor, so we can jump into the options here. And here we have full control over the lens flare preset, so we can do things like edit the different objects and properties. Now, we can also come over here to the preset browser, where we've got a ton of great presets, including the brand new nuclear presets specifically for the Nuke version of optical flares. So there's some great lens flare presets with some really cool anamorphic elements, and you can go through, you can even load multiple lens flares together, so you can actually right click and add to current to combine lens flare presets, so that's kind of cool. We can also reset to the default flare. Another cool thing on the global parameters, we have the lens textures, and specifically in the Nuke version we have a bunch of brand new textures like some of these defocus ones. So let's see, we'll turn up the brightness and the illumination radius, and we can kind of see some cool on-lens effects. So I'll get into the presets and textures a little bit more in another tutorial, but this just kind of gives you an idea, some great presets all around. So we'll go ahead and just hit cancel so we can go back to where we were. Another new feature is the additional 2D flares. So what we can do is add some additional 2D flares. We can add one here. And what this allows us to do is create multiple lens flares using a single optical flares node. Now we also have control over the brightness multiplier for this particular flare. So pretty cool and fast way to use multiple flares. We also have the flicker. So if we turn this up, the speed and the amount, we can actually create some nice life in our lens flares. Now, we also have this feature called randomize multiple flares, which will randomize them independently if you have multiple flares generated at the same time. So save you some time animating them individually. You'll also notice this other feature called scale offset, and it works really well if you're going to make some small lens flares and you don't want those objects to look too separated. So that's how it looks normally. But if we turn on the scale offset, you get some nice uniform scaled elements. So to create a lens flare from scratch, what you're going to do is add the optical flares node. And then what we're going to do is just merge it over the top of another background image. And then we just have to set the format to HD or whatever your format source is, and then initialize the center. So that way, when you move the lens flare position, all of the secondary elements will cross over that middle position, and you'll get a nice optical effect. And then you can go into the options to edit the lens flare or load presets, etc. Now, if I come over to this other example, you can see I've got this lens flare tracked to the headlights. So I used the tracker node to track the headlight, and then inside of optical flares, I was able to take the position, link it directly to a tracker track point, and get the animation perfectly. And that works just the same with the additional 2D flares as well. Another great feature is the automatic lens flare occlusion. So I've got this animation, and the lens flare blinks out as it goes behind these pieces. So what I have is a matte that was generated from some depth information, and I can plug that directly into the optical flares node into the matte. And then optical flares has some options under 2D matte occlusion to sample the luma or the alpha of that matte layer. And then depending on the size of the light radius, you can actually create a more soft or more abrupt fade out or blink out of that lens flare. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and hopefully this gives you a few ideas on how easy to use the plugin is and all the great things you can do with it, as well as all the great lens flare presets and textures that are included. My name is Andrew Kramer, and we will see you next time.